Welcome to 1111 VC Firm. I'm your host, Saint Marquis. We're here with a special guest, Lawrence Carter, teacher. We're going to talk about the state of education. We're on episode 8. Let's jump into this interview. And how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. Working on finishing up this education doctorate. Just in the dissertation phase, just working on that, cranking that out. It's a process. It's a different kind of school experience for sure.
Right. All right, let's talk about the state of education right now, and how this COVID-19 is impacting that.
Absolutely. So at different levels, it's doing different things. So like on the higher education level, you're seeing, I guess you would say, some unprepared, organizations for the situation. So they're used to having everybody live on campus. They're used to having physical books. They're used to having dorms. They're used to having other vendors having facilities on campus where they can sell things like a Subway or Chick-fil-A or whatever it is. And, it's just interesting because, like we were saying, just not being prepared for a situation in which, the kids aren't there for all of those 9 months or whatever the time is. But then getting into like K through 12, looking at how is this whole thing going to affect admissions for kids? How is it going to affect, kids, we stopped having school, I want to say around March 19th or something like that. And that's when that's when we stopped doing physical classes for K through 12. And, some of the kids are really doing it and really excelling with it, really taking it serious. But then you have other kids who probably really need the help, who could be going through other things, and school maybe not be the focus right now. For instance, you may have some kids that their parents are figuring out, okay, how do we retain our house? How do we make sure grandma's good? And therefore they may not be focused on school right now, or they may be focused on real life. So, I just think that, that you have that side of it, but then also, getting into what we were talking about before, the term for this whole learning experience is distance learning. And, just distance learning, meaning that these people are performing in education not at the physical location of the school. And distance learning is a whole new world for a lot of these kids, because now it's on the kid to log in. It's on the student to, do the homework, participate, read, whatever it is, ask for help through email, whatever it is. And so because of that, the teacher can only grade what they're seeing. If they don't see it, they can't really grade it. Now they're going back to the kid or going back to the parent, asking them, where's the work at, or, where's the homework? And even on the teacher, it's been a lot more data management than it has been, per se, really doing a lot of skill-based teaching or anything like that. So I would just say that it's been an adjustment for everybody. Teacher skills had to change, administrator skills had to change, student skills had to change, parent skills had to change. It's interesting.
And at this stage level, you have to the child at like a young age has to deal with this type of accountability, having that homework in on time and making sure that it gets done. How's that going to affect children at young ages, just dealing with that accountability?
Well, I would say that one of the really interesting things, even like you're seeing in government, how there's just striation. There's, federal government saying one thing and then different places and different states doing other things. And I would say that you're kind of seeing the same thing in education. So, in the specific district that I work in, they decided that they were going to have one schedule. So they went from having a traditional and a traditional and like a modified traditional or track schedule. They went to having one schedule. They had one date where they were going to all end, one date where they all kind of started. Maybe a focus more on the high school students as they're closer to leaving and going to college. But there's still a lot of difference, even if you were looking at where I live versus where I used to work, or maybe like where you're living, or if you went to Southern California, or if you went to a different state. It's kind of like different places are doing different things, and different places are always doing different things, but at the same time, it's even more magnified at the current moment,
Right. And with these influx of applications, with those students leaving and going to college, with so much emphasis put on that, what I'm saying is that so many people are applying, to go to schools. How does that change that system and people reviewing those applications?
Well, so currently I don't work in higher ed right now. So I did do some professor work in the past, like working at a junior college. But in terms of the connections that I have and the people I've spoken with that are in higher ed's going through an interesting situation because, first of all, the funding, but second of all, just kind of the uncertainty of society, right? So, I mean, it's really hard to sell a student on let's go to this college right now when they don't know if they're going to actually be in college, or they don't know if they don't know they don't maybe they don't have faith in the online experience compared to the physical experience. Maybe they're like, I'll just wait until we go back to normal.
Right.
Which then for the school means they don't have the enrollment money, they don't have the enrollment numbers, just other issues are coming out of it. So I mean, I think that there's, I don't know exactly what the ramifications will be, but I just think that it's going to be different for sure.
Right.
Like I know that I want to say I think USC is doing online for the fall. I want to say Sac State might be doing, or the CSU system was doing. They were doing online classes mostly for the fall, and then maybe going back, in the at the top of the year or something like that. But I just think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how, these other systems kind of keep things going as, things are really changed right now. Like you go out anywhere and everybody has masks on. It's kind of crazy.
All right. And the work that you're doing so far, how does your work impacted, during this situation?
I would say that multiple ways. So the first way that it's impacted is just that not actually being there with the kids to see what they're doing and assess their progress. I think it's really difficult on the kids not having the social atmosphere and the social environment of school. I think that overall it's just been tough on everybody involved, mostly because it's nothing that we controlled, it's nothing that we knew about, it's nothing that any of us really have a say-so in. It's just kind of what we got to do right now, which is the Google Classrooms and the Zooms and, everything like that. Even though, like we were saying, I mean, that, running a Zoom meeting with some seventh graders or some eighth graders, I mean, that's a whole different experience, a whole different set of skills, being able to set down rules where these kids will still follow you in that setting, or being able to have assignments and craft them in a way that are easily understood by all the students, but not so much at a low level that it's too easy, but then at the same time not too elevated that they're like, man, it's PE, what are we doing? So just finding that common balance, but also just trying to keep in mind that right now there's bigger things going on than just my class, or just the student's experience in school or whatever's going on. So
right, and trying to accommodate those different learning styles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's another thing that's been interesting during this time, is just the utilization of all the other digital medias, the digital technologies that are available. There's students that speak different languages, so being able to utilize the translators, being able to translate different materials, being able to bring in digital resources, online resources. So I think that in that side of it, it's probably making the students more resourceful, better able to find information and use computers. But I would also say that the students definitely want to get back to seeing each other, and they definitely want to be back at school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For the students that are listening to this, how can they adapt to these changes and ensure that it's a easy process, and also ensure that they're learning and using those different learning styles and techniques during this time?
Absolutely. I would say that the first thing students really need to do is have a schedule and stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
Even for adults right now, even for people that are working at home, it's like, just because you're at home, that doesn't mean that you should lose those habits, because as soon as we go back, that's going to be an adjustment period. So it's making sure that you keep your habits, making sure that you just stay disciplined and on top of it, because like I was saying with the instance of distance learning, it's disconnected, so it's like your teacher is not looking at you every day to be able to see the look and expressions on your face, to see like how you're doing or see if you're having a good day or all those things. That's all now through the computer. Right. So it's I feel like if students are having a hard time, they really need to reach out. Know that your teachers, know that your administrators are definitely there for you. It's not them trying to be distant or them deciding that they don't want to see you or anything like that. It's more that the powers that be have made a decision that this is what we got to do right now. Right. I think that's the tough part, just because that's for everyone involved. That's for the teachers, the parents. There's a lot of frustrated parents right now that are trying to figure out ways to help their students learn, and even just adapting to the technology. I mean, Google Classroom, probably one of the major platforms that everyone's using right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not necessarily complicated, but I mean, you could do the assignment, and if you didn't click turn in, it doesn't send the assignment to the teacher. So it's like at one of the previous schools I had been working at, that was one of the big things that they were into. Like it was a technology school, so of course they started out in 6th grade on computers every class every day. But just realizing that there were instances with the technology where there are hiccups that people will have, and I feel like just something that you gotta, especially as a teacher right now, just keep in mind.
Right. And for those parents, speaking to those parents, how can they help their students during these times?
Wow, that's a great question. So I would say that when it comes to parents, you really need to know what your student is supposed to do. Know what they're supposed to do. Be involved. Especially when it comes to just our students' education in general. I mean, we got to understand that there's grades. There's the grade that is assigned to your performance, but ultimately the more important thing is the content. You know what I mean? Do you know it? And I feel like there's varying ways of showing how you know it. You can explain it, you can demonstrate it, different things like that. But ultimately, as a parent, you should kind of have an idea of oh, okay, my student is in 9th grade. This is what they're learning. Maybe you don't know exactly on a day-to-day basis what it is, or maybe you kind of have a weekly overview, or you have like a term overview, or kind of the big assignments that go on in that class or something. But the same way that you have kind of like an at-home or a family schedule or a personal schedule, have a schedule for like what your kids are doing. That way you know what's going on, because it's actually really interesting listening to one of the previous episodes. That movie, The Platform, I feel like that is a real demonstration of just a lot of things in life, but particularly school. I feel like people don't know what they don't know, especially when it comes to school. So the high performing schools, they do what they do and they get their results. And if you're not informed about what they're doing, then those years just kind of go by, and I think that that's ultimately what you want to avoid. You want to make sure that your student is learning what they're supposed to learn, that they're developing, emotionally, psychologically, and you want to make sure that they're on the best footing for whatever professional life that they want to go into. If it's entrepreneurship, if it's entertainment, if it's education, whatever field they're trying to go into, just make sure that they, have developed some basic skills around all these other content areas that will keep them well-rounded, and then make sure that they're knowledgeable about what they're going into. And it's not just like, oh, I saw this on TV, but I've actually done some research. I've actually looked into it. Maybe I've spoken to some people who are in this field, and go ahead and go into it, But I think I also at the same time would say that asking about, I think that that's kind of the process part, but I also think that you have to develop study skills. You have to develop study habits. Like for me, I was able to coast through a lot of high school and a lot of college without having solid habits and stuff like that, only for it to turn out to, you get to later in life and you really need those habits because you're writing a dissertation and you have to work on it every day. Or even just in your professional life, you need that consistency in order to show up day in and day out to your job, and to be driven and be consistent in that. So I mean, I just think that starting those habits when someone's young, being able to develop those habits over long periods of time, that's how you can really make sure that whatever you go into, you're game for it, opposed to not having some of the fundamental skills that will allow you to be good at your profession. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And for those students that are, I would say, that are involved in sports, how would they deal with this time?
Wow.
Because, I want to cover all areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when it comes to athletes, specifically right now, you got to make sure that you continue to be driven. And I mean, I believe that at some point, all of this will be over at some point, and things will go back to maybe not exactly how they were before, but people will have some sense of normalcy. Kids will be playing sports, and people will be going to school, and people will be going to work, and everything like that. And I think that right now, you really have the opportunity to look at things from both sides. Kind of both sides of the angle. I mean, you can be optimistic, and you can look at it and say, this is a time for me to really hone in on my craft and really study and really develop my knowledge and really develop my own personal skills. Or you could, take it as a time where you're like, oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm so bored, I'm just going to not do anything. I'm just going to, get out of shape and just sit here. So, you want to make sure that you remain optimistic and positive, and you remain open for the opportunities that can be presented to you. So, I mean, I would really just say, continue to develop and take this time and really just study. I mean, you're probably never going to have time like this again in your life to just sit down for this amount of time and really develop and think about what you want to do and set into action plans and just all kinds of things. I mean, for me initially, I thought that this was kind of like, it's like, wow, what do you mean I have to be at home? But over time you start to think, well, wow, what can I develop in this time that I'm at home? What can I build in this time that I'm at home? If I'm at home for 3 months, what can I build in 3 months that I wasn't doing before? And, I feel like just using it for the positive is, it's really, it first of all is going to keep you psychologically in the game. But second of all, it's, you can use it to your personal benefit, use it to your economic benefit, just use it to make your life better,
Yeah. And what got you into the field of education?
So my family, was into education. Also, I had early, I guess you'd say kind of like childhood experiences that told me I was pretty decent at it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my first teaching experience was I was a lifeguard at a pool, like over here, out here in Sacramento. And, being a lifeguard at this time meant that you also taught swim lessons. So you would have swim lessons, kids of ages maybe between 3 to 8 or something like that. And you would have maybe like between 5 to 10 kids at a time or whatever. And, there was just something really powerful about being able to teach somebody, taking a kid who was 3 years old, who was afraid to like put their face in the water. And 2 weeks later, you have them actually swimming, not holding them up, no floaties, nothing, just because you were able to really teach the kid, first of all, how to break through that element of fear, but second of all, how to, just how to trust the process, how to develop from day 1 to day 2, day 2 to day 3, and so on and so forth, But then after that, went to college, was playing sports. Also, another key element too that got me into where I'm at with education was, I played a lot of sports in my childhood. So growing up, I played basketball, probably from the age of like 5 or 6 growing up. And then once I got to high school and I realized I wasn't going to be, 6'5" or 6'4" or whatever it was going to be, mm-hmm. I got into other sports. So my junior year of high school, I tried out for the water polo team. After water polo, I went out for wrestling. And after wrestling, I went out for swimming. And then my senior year, I was the captain of all 3 of those teams and went to sections for all 3 of those teams. In college, played rugby for freshman year at Sac State. So, I was just always really, really into sports. And that's kind of what led me to wanting to be a teacher. But then at the same time, I also wasn't really aware of all the economic realities at the time. Like I wasn't necessarily aware of the need for money or what things cost or, inflation or compound interest. Like at that time, I just thought, playing sports was really cool. And then I feel like after graduating undergraduate, that was when it was like, oh, wow, this is what a salary looks like. This is what a paycheck looks like.
Right.
And then trying to figure out, okay, what's the next what's the next move to have the life that I want to have. And I feel like that led to getting the master's degree. It's led to getting the doctorate degree, but it also led to other decisions, like getting into things like Forex, getting into things like being a professor, wanting to just have other entrepreneurial endeavors. I feel like really just being a lifelong learner is a key element just in life, because I remember when I was in school, when I was in college at Sac State, I had a professor who said something like, you should expect your career or your profession to change at least like 5 to 7 times during your professional career. And what I also realize is that, no matter what you get into, whether it's a job or whether it's the military or whatever, there's an element of learning. You go into the military and they give you a book and say, here you go, the test will be coming up soon. So it's not like learning ever stops. So, I feel like knowing how to learn, being able to apply the things that you learn, that's a skill in itself. It's something that it's very beneficial.
And being willing to learn is a skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Being willing to learn, being willing to take a chance, being willing to try something new, I think that's a really big skill that people, really should work on developing, just because, even relating it back to what we were saying before, it's like, the new jobs that potentially come out of this situation or whatever, that may require retraining, that may require you to learn something new. And, the better that you could learn it, the faster you could learn it. That relates to, how fast you could rise up, or maybe even in other fields like tech, your ability to, learn and apply what you're doing, that can relate to potential jobs or potential opportunities in the future for you. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I wish I actually did know more about, was tech and coding, programming, things like that.
Mm-hmm. And speaking to those students, again, students that are looking to get into education, how has this process been for you, mentally and emotionally?
You mean like as a teacher, or you mean like
no, going through the Doctor of Education?
Oh wow. So the process of getting your doctorate is very different. The process of getting your doctorate is really teaching you how to create individual research, create professional level research. And the whole thing about that is it's a lot different, than, okay, read a book or follow a series of lectures, and then there's an assessment at the end. It's like, at this level, your assessment is your ability to craft this writing, your ability to give us these deliverable papers that eventually will lead up to a dissertation. So it's different because it's product based in a sense, in comparison to most other situations you're talking about, like we were saying, going through some lectures or going through laboratory type settings and doing experiments, getting data, maybe like having, doing summaries, reflections, things like that. Getting your doctorate is, it's doing your prospectus, it's doing your 10 strategic points, doing your prospectus, doing your proposal, doing your dissertation, and that involves the outline of your project, the reasoning behind your project, the research base behind your project, the other research that has led to saying that this is a valuable project to do, all the way down to getting the approvals from a location to do your research, getting the participants, running the research, looking at all the data, writing it all up, editing it all. It's all of those things kind of mixed into one, in comparison to a lot of experiences from my bachelor's or master's degree, where you take a class every couple of weeks, there's an assessment of some type, you kind of just keep it moving, or at the end of the course there's a project or something like that. With this whole thing, it's been a lot of learning how to write at a scholarly academic level. There's benefits to it too. There's a lot of benefits to, I feel like, getting your doctorate, in the sense of what it will do to you, how it will make you grow psychologically, how it will make you grow and be, I guess you would say, precise in your work, the level of clarity in your writing, just different things like that. And, that also will translate to other things in your life. Like, I'm a big believer that a lot of skills are transferable. A lot of, even if you're going back to athletics, there's certain things from wrestling that can be used in football. There's certain things in water polo that could be used in basketball. just transferring your skills and being able, like we were saying, to just apply what you know to different areas of your life. I think it's huge. I think
strategy, leadership, team building.
Absolutely.
Man, and what keeps you like motivated, like during this whole journey on your pathway to become a doctor and get your doctorate in education?
I would say that one of the big things that keeps me motivated is just knowing that I have, first of all, the skill to be able to do it. I think that's a big thing, just the belief in myself. But I also think that there's a huge need for there to be solutions in education. I think that one of the big things that really actually motivated me to go and pursue a doctorate. I was working for a junior college, and I was sent to a training that was at Santa Barbara Community College. And at the training, what they were saying was that at the community college level within California, the graduation rate was something like 13% or 16%. And I was just like, how? How could there be an industry where they have a 13% success rate and they're allowed to keep conducting business? And, I didn't really understand. And I figured like, oh, wow, like if I could figure out some of those type of solutions, like I would probably be in a good place. Like that would probably, allow me to have the life that I wanted to have, as well as, feel like I was making a big change in different communities and a big change in people's lives by being able to help them, maybe even on the structural side of some of these educational issues, because I feel like that's another thing that's always kind of interesting, is realizing that you have the policy side, you have the legal side, but you also have what people interpret side, like the actual teaching and the teaching, the assessment, the perception of the school, those type of things. That's one piece to it. But then on the other side, you have all the legal ramifications of what has to be taught and how things are taught, safety regulations, just different things that become part of what is a part of this overall structure of education. What makes certain schools do certain things, other schools do other things, And I think that that's also a big piece of getting your doctorate. So my doctorate is a doctorate of education with an emphasis in organizational leadership at the higher education level, right? So it's more focused on understanding the structure of a school. So in comparison to my master's degree, which was focused on, I guess you would say, teaching, right? So there's different elements of education as well. I don't know if we really talked about that, but I mean, you have kind of the arts side of teaching, you have the science side of teaching. You have arts degrees in teaching, you have the science degrees in teaching. You have the art subjects, you have the science subjects. So there are different experiences for different people. I would definitely say that in order to be a successful teacher, you're going to need to know why you're there. You're going to need to know that, you're going to first of all need to like teaching people. You're going to need to know your subject. You're going to need to enjoy solving problems for your, whoever your consumer base is, whether that's K through 12 students, college, whatever it is. But in terms of being a doctoral student or getting your doctorate, I think that just the drive for that, it has to be in you. It's not something that you can, I feel like, really manufacture, because at a point you're going to have an assignment, or you're going to have not a hoop to go through, but you're going to have something that you have to do where you're really tested, and I feel like that's another part of that process. Like I was also in a fraternity, in college and whatnot, and not that I liken everything to the way that fraternities onboard new members, but I do believe that there is a lot of you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to get to this place, you got to go to that place, and that is also a part of that journey. Being okay with, this is what I got to do, and I'm not going to challenge it. I'm not going to question my advisor. I'm going to listen to my advisor and my mentor, and I'm going to take that input that they have serious. I'm not going to just say, oh, I mean, whatever, they don't know about it. No, I'm gonna take it serious. I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna adapt. I'm gonna make sure that I'm not so stuck in my own ways, that I'm still able to learn. But at the same time, assert myself enough to make sure that my viewpoint is heard, and that my viewpoint is taken serious as well. And I think that that confidence that you get from those type of experiences and those conversations is, really invaluable. You know what I'm saying? Just because that helps you in other phases of your life. You're not questioning your decisions. You're not questioning, your thought-making process or your thought processes, really other things like that. Like, I feel like it's just, you're going to grow as a person by getting your doctorate in the same way that you're going to grow as a student.
Mm-hmm. And currently, are there any books that you're reading right now that you want to share with the community? Any literature?
Wow. Yeah, I'm reading a lot of stuff. So kind of like I was saying earlier, I recently got involved with trading Forex, and the biggest thing for me with that was just once I heard about the opportunity and I heard about the potential that it could have, I realized that I just needed to learn. You know what I mean? I realized that there was a whole nother content area or subject area that I needed to really just venture off into and really just kind of take a deep dive into. So, I mean, I probably bought maybe 25 Forex books in the last week or so. Even today, I picked up this book. It's called Forex 2020. I'm not sure the guy's name, but it's it's on Amazon. Picked that up, read that in one day and maybe an hour or two. But just been reading a lot of different books about Forex. There's a great podcast that I feel like people should listen to that I would actually plug. Don't know the guy or anything like that, but just a podcast that I was getting a lot of value from. It's called the Always Free Podcast. So, definitely get your psychology right for your entrepreneurship, your psychology right for finance, discipline. It's just, for me, as soon as I heard the first episode, and I was like, oh, this is something different. But I'm a big podcast guy. Like, I like to listen to podcasts just because I can keep it mobile. I move around a lot. I have a German Shepherd Husky mix, or she might be a Belgian Malinois. Who knows? I haven't done the DNA test yet, but one of those two mixes, and she keeps me pretty active and pretty on to my habits. She doesn't really take no for an answer. So,
Are there any projects that you're currently working on right now that you want to keep us in the loop about?
So I would say at the current time, I'm just working on my doctorate, man. Working on the doctorate, trying to stay on pace with that. It's really hard just because, like we were saying, it's the process of writing it is, write a little bit, send it to your team, wait, team sends it back. Now you get back to work. So it's trying to finding productive things to do in that time that you're waiting. Also making sure that you're ready emotionally and psychologically to, when you get that paper back, to deal with whatever it says, whether it says that you did amazing or whether it says, wow, this is really not what I told you to do, or whether it says, throw this away and do this again. So just really working on this doctorate, trying to utilize this time that I'm at home. Like I said a couple minutes ago, really learning the Forex game and really developing an understanding of where the goal is for me with that. And then potentially getting into just other endeavors. I'm not really saying that I would limit myself at this current moment just because there's so many opportunities right now. But at the same time, too, being strategic about what I spend my time doing and what I'm investing my time and money in.
Valuable. That's dope, man. Well, I want to thank you for your time, for being on the show.
Absolutely.
How can people keep in contact with you?
You can keep in contact just on Instagram. My Instagram is Laguna_Larry_2. Funny story behind that. So when I was growing up out here in this area, there was this guy that he would always go running every day, right? And he was Laguna Larry, right? So it was kind of funny because I don't really know what happened to him, but I just thought that was a cool way to kind of carry that torch. Give some reverence to some people that were out here in this area before I was. So Laguna_Larry_2. You also could send me an email at LarryLC1078 at Gmail if you wanted to reach out by email if you had questions or anything like that. Probably be building out some platforms in the future. Maybe a podcast, maybe some other things, some informational sites. But at the current moment, like we were saying, just really making sure that I prioritize so that I can, get finished and it doesn't end up taking 5 years opposed to 3 years.
Right.
Something like that. So really just prioritizing. And then after I'm done with that, then I can move on to this next venture.
Right. Well,
Yep.
thank you, man.
Yep,
I wish you much
absolutely.
success in your journey. I want to tell the supporters and the listeners, thank you for listening to this podcast. Please make sure to support us on YouTube, support us on Anchor, Apple, and Spotify. Leave a review, leave a comment, leave a like, and especially with YouTube, that helps us with the algorithm. Thank you for supporting us and keeping up with the viewership. All right, thank you, 1111 VC Firm. Appreciate you, Lawrence.
Yep,
Take care
absolutely.
and see you another time. All right, brother.